What's up, YouTube? Not too terribly long of a video here. Like New Year's Eve, little bit of congestion, stuffiness, blah 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 blah. I wasn't really planning on recording this league, hence why it wasn't a full recording. I just kind of ran through it last night, decided to record the video today. This was a list, a Sultai shadow list that a player named Sonkerz posted in one of the Discords. I think the Modern Meta Cord. And I'm going to repost it into my Discord as well, which, as always, links down below to my Discord, to the Twitch in case you want to check out a live stream, Twitter in case you want to know when a stream's going live, and the deck list so you can see it there. But they posted this list there, and I was like, oh, I haven't played Sultai in a minute. Why not? This is a little different from where I usually go with Sultai. I've been really big on Giganta, no counter spells, no Murktides, leaning into Tarmogoyf, stuff like that. So as soon as I saw Tarmogoyf in this list, I was like, oh yeah, that's it. We got to try it. They decided to go a different direction. Instead of going with the Murktides for the heavy blue kind of Demirs, or really blue splash black green, they went heavy on the counter spells, but didn't go all the way in on Murktide. So I'll talk about one of the little changes I made just because of that. But Counterspell is still a very excellent card to have access to. Tarmogoyf is a secondary threat to Shadow, Bowmaster, Ledger Shredder, whatnot. Really, in a deck like this, I'd almost say Tarmogoyf is your primary threat, because it's the thing that provides the quickest clock with the least amount of setup. You don't have to double spell for Ledger Shredder. You don't have to double Bowman to get your Orc Army token up big. You don't have to lose all the life for Shadow. Or it's just a thing that you can play out on turn 2 most of the time and have a very quick clock. Some of the other inclusions, the full play set of Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, Preordain, the 3 Drowns, the Assassin's Trophy with the Dismember. In the sideboard, got a couple Spreading Seas, really love Spreading Seas, Dress Down, 2 Stern Scolding, 2 Flusterstorm, 2 Terra Sunder, 2 Veil of Summer, 2 Engineered Explosives, a Cursed Totem, and a Pithing Needle. Like I said, I made a couple small changes only to the mana base, only thing that I messed around with. Their list had 2 islands, 4 Watery Graves, and an Otawara. I cut the second island, the Otawara, and the 4th Watery Grave for 2 Verdant Catacombs and an Overgrown Tomb. The reason being is I didn't want to have 2 Breeding Pool, 2 Island, and an Otawara as non-black sources, keeping you from going turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Shadow. And I wanted to have more fetch lands so that the life loss would be a little more consistent with getting Shadow online. Because if you've played a lot of Dimir, you have those hands where you get Island Otawara, and you can cantrip, you can counterspell, you can get down to Murktide, that feels good, but you end up being 17 life on turn 6 because you found 1 fetch land, and it's just, it's tough to be conducive to Shadow being a reasonable threat when you're not actually losing life with those hands. And especially since this list doesn't run Murktide, you're not as greedy about getting quad blue on turn 4 for Murktide plus Counterspell. Instead, I think you can kind of afford the Overgrown Tomb here, so you can more consistently have Goyf and then have up Counterspell the next turn, or Goyf plus Stub, or Goyf plus Thoughtseize, Goyf plus Shadow, something like that, without needing a bunch of breeding pools. So pretty minor change, just my consideration. You can still fetch and chalk Watery Grave pretty aggressively. Honestly, this list reminds me a lot of my take on Jund Shadow. It's basically just red, black, splashing green for Goyf. I've got 3 Blood Crypts in that compared to 3 Watery Graves here. Maybe you could cut the second Breeding Pool if you really wanted to 1-for-1 kind of port it over, but it's not a 1-for-1 port of that deck. Completely different. The things I'm really interested in seeing are how Ledger Shredder does, I do think it's a reasonable value card, even in a Bowmaster meta. But it's got to be sizable. It's got to be like worth the mana investment. So I want to see how Ledger Shredder does. I want to see how, obviously, Tarmogoyf does. And then Preordain, honestly, is a card that's been kind of underwhelming to me. So I want to see how that does. Maybe I can look for spots that it's better or worse to just have like a playset of Street Wraiths in here, since you're not playing Giganta anyway. But we'll keep an eye, see how that goes, and go ahead and show off some games with it. So hopping into match number 1, since this is all going to be like voiceover, it should be a pretty quick run through. Really good opening 7, like couple lands, Ledger Shredder plus Bobble on 2. We end up getting to Soft Stub and Aether Vial on 1. Always a good feeling, because there's a really good chance that like this Stubborn Denial counterspell are just going to be dead after this. I end up having the Connive trigger here. I decided to just chunk the counterspell, because if I'm up against something like humans or a tribal deck, then Cavern of Souls and Aether Vial can both make counterspell dead. If I'm up against something like Taxes, then counterspell is a little bit better, but if they just have another Vial, then like the counterspell is not doing much. And I'm really hoping I get a chance to like untap Bowmaster down a Thalia and Thoughtseize or something like that. So counterspell is just like not conducive to that doubling up on turn 3. So I'm going to end up tossing that aside. Bobble them. See a Secluded Courtyard. So that means it is a tribal deck. And they've got another Aether Vial. So like I'm really glad that I threw away that counterspell now. We get the Thoughtseize, take away an Adeline, leave them with the Champion of the Parish and a Naira, Jirana, something like that. It's black-white, 2-drop that exiles a yard when it enters. Like, never seen the card before, but it looks like one of these Aftermath things. So, then you can, like, sack it, give all your humans hexproof and indestructible. Pretty cool card. But if their plan is just to play like some... I should have flashed in Bowmaster here and pinged the Noble Hierarch before they went to combat. I'm kind of okay taking the damage, but it would have been free to kind of ping, and that if they want to trade off the champion instead of getting a free attack. But either way, if like their entire game plan is coming at me on the ground here, I feel pretty good with just Ledger Shredders. Or Ledger Shredder and Shadow attacking. I can get in a chump block here, flash in Bowmaster, put them down to 3, and then hopefully just kill them with the Ledger Shredder. Scoops it up. Going to sideboarding. Bunch of stuff we can get out of here, like Stubborn Denial, Counterspell, both are very, very underwhelming in any kind of Aether Vial tribal matchup. Dress Down's good. I would look at Veil of Summer if I saw more blue, like more Reflector Mages and things like that. But it looked more like Abzan-y, as I thought sees away Reflector Mage. Rhina thing again. So we know that they have a Dismember. They've got a Coppercoat Vanguard. They no longer have a Dismember. They still have a Coppercoat Vanguard. But I've got Shadow Goyf here. Just really clog up the ground. Like even if they have a Reflector Mage or something, then I get a block on one of their guys. I get to Fatal Push something. Sanctifier, a little bit more annoying. Not the worst in the world, because like Tarmogoyf does stand in front of it pretty good. You know, they're Vial off their library, so if their card in hand is dead, then they're not doing anything. Finding another Bowmaster on my side is pretty good. Go ahead and Fatal Push this Jirana thing. And finding another Goyf is really nice, because now I get to attack him with both. If they double block the Goyf, I can Bowmaster ping the Vanguard, trade off their entire board and just play another Goyf. But as long as I've got double Goyf here, then I start forcing them into like really bad chump blocks really quickly. Or Bowmaster in this case just seals it. On to game number 2. Match number 2. You're on the play. Again, reasonable hand. Like, it's not a lot of hard interaction, which can be rough, but you just have threats. It looks like we're up against Tron, so we're going to need some better interaction. Just main phase, throw down a Bowmaster here. You got to remember with Chromatic Sphere and Chromatic Star both. Well, Chromatic Sphere, yes. Chromatic Star, no. Chromatic Sphere, they draw a card as part of the ability resolving, and the ability is a mana ability, so it does not use the stack for Chromatic Sphere. Chromatic Star creates a separate trigger that says when it enters the battle or when it hits the graveyard, you draw a card, so you can respond to that on the Star. But with the Sphere, you cannot respond to them cracking it by like flashing in Bowmaster, so just keep that in mind if you get into a situation where you're wanting to Bowmaster, make it a little bit chunkier. The joy of Tron is just, Tron's always got Tron things. We can try to crack around this Ulamog, which if they have nothing else, we might be able to do. We've got lethal next turn if they don't have anything. Fortunately, Wurmcoil's not anything, so now I need them to attack. No attack. If they attacked, then I can attack back on my turn and Fatal Push the guy that they block so they don't gain the life. But because they don't attack, I can't attack into their Wurmcoil, and I need to keep kind of like going wide around their board. Can do this. Block, Fatal Push my blocker, keep them from gaining the life. I've got lethal around the Ulamog right now. Maybe we find a stub. Nope. All right. Then they go ahead and crack the O-Stone right away. Scoop to that. Can't beat an O-Stone. On to game 2. Sideboarding against Tron. Like Fatal Pushes coming out. Dismember's coming out. Some number of Drowns are coming out. Bringing in Dress Down. Any extra Stubborn Denials. What else? Spreading Seas, really big. Spreading Seas, probably the single best card against them. Then times like this, they're going to have, if they have the second Tron land and they can map for the third, then Thought Seizing does me no good, so I might as well get my threat down. Thankfully, my threat draws me into a Spreading Seas, so I get to like have a really good double up turn here. Second Spreading Seas. So we're doing our best impersonation of Mono Blue Tron here. Just like game 1, playing out the Bowmaster first so that if they crack the Sphere on their turn, I get the Bowmaster trigger. They find a One Ring, but we're going to respond to the activation with Terra Sunder. So the way the One Ring's worded, you put the counter on it and then draw cards equal to the number of counters. So if you respond to the activation, then they don't get to put a counter on it because it's gone. They don't get to draw a card. But if they already have counters on it and they activate it, and then you Terra Sunder, it'll use the last known information. So if it had 2 counters, they're tapping to try to add the third, and you respond with Terra Sunder, then they're still going to draw 2 cards. You're not actually removing the counter, you're just preventing them from putting new counters onto it. Opponent's going to draw off the One Ring, hit them for a bunch. They don't hit anything that kills us, and we get to go to game 3. Going to game 3, always nice. They always nice. I'd rather have 2 OS, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Reasonable opening hand. We could have like turn 1 Needle for a map. And of course, we have the hand with the turn 1 Needle, and our opponent doesn't have a turn 1 play. So, kind of rough. Also bring in Flusterstorm in the matchup. It's like obviously not good against the big payoffs, but being able to hit Sylvan Scrying or Ancient Stirrings, Veil of Summer, stuff like that in the early turns is pretty nice. Now that they have tapped out to get this map on board, I kind of have to make this awkward decision of like, I can Pithing Needle the map to try to stop them from having Tron. I could play out Double Shadow or something. I could Assassin's Trophy a Tron land, play out a Shadow, but they're going to have a replacement for that Tron land with the map. So let me walk through my decision making real quick. I decide not to Pithing Needle the map because I want to get a threat down. I want to get a threat down. If they have the Tron land and I Pithing Needle the map, I could like Assassin's Trophy one of their Tron lands, but they can just map to replace it, and that doesn't really do me a whole lot of good. So I decided to go for the high risk, high reward play of playing out the Shadow, getting my threat down, and then Assassin's Trophy, one of the Tron lands when they go to fetch off the map. But then my opponent just has the third Tron land. So now I don't get to respond with Assassin's Trophying one of their Tron lands with the map. Because like I wanted to make it so if they had Power Plant, Tower, Forest or something, and they crack Forest, one of their Tron lands, to crack map to go get the third one, I can respond with like blowing up the tower. They can only float 1 mana and go get a Forest, and like everything's fine. Obviously, it did not play very well around them just having the third Tron land, but I assumed that because they Sylvan Scryinged on 2 and then Ancient Stirrings on 3, that they didn't just have the third one rolled up. So either way, could have gone better, didn't. Just hold on to this map as long as I can, because if I use the map or use the trophy now, then they just map for the replacing piece, and that doesn't accomplish anything for me. Remember, for the Bowmasters, okay. Oh, that's why I played the Pithing Needle on the map. I played the Pithing Needle before they activated the ring. They chose to activate the ring and then not respond with the map. So if they had not activated the ring or the map, I'd Pithing Needle the 1 ring. Since they did activate the 1 ring and just kept the map open, I Pithing Needled the map so that I could trophy away one of the Tron lands on their draw step, and they wouldn't be able to fetch up another copy right away. Obviously, if they like Stirrings and find 1, or in this case, Stirrings and find a Haywire Mite to take out my Needle so they can Expedition map, can't do much about that, but one step at a time. And it's gonna Haywire Mite down my Pithing Needle so they can map up the missing Tron land again. We're just gonna play out dudes because that's all we can really do. We're gonna lose 2 life, go to 5. Then opponent makes this decision to Karn for bridge, play out their entire hand. But as you notice, they did not play out enough cards to get me, or to get below 3, so I could still attack with the Orc Army token, ignoring the Karn, going at the face, because if they don't get a way to get this 1 ring off the board, they just die to the 1 ring trigger on their upkeep. And I don't think Tron has got a lot of good ways, if any, to get it off the board on their upkeep. So a little bit fortunate there, but at the same time, like, yay. Easy mole there. With a sketchy keep on 6. I'd rather have a threat up against basic Swamp Fatal Push, so it could be like Coffers. Definitely Coffers. We saw Shieldred's Edict that we took. Left him with a Fatal Push and a Shieldred. Can't remember what my reasoning was for taking Edict over Fatal Push. Had some reason, but now it's beyond me. But I'm glad to see him like going ahead and popping Field of Ruins, because obviously if I can get cards in their graveyard, that's really good for me. Bottom Counterspell and Drown, because neither of those kill Shieldred, but Assassin's Trophy does. So at least I know I've got an answer to the Shieldred. And just get that off the board. Up the Fatal Push, that's fine with me, because at this point, like, I'm just on finding threats. No follow-up. We scribed both the Breeding Pool and the Shadow to the top. Just trying to find ways to get a little pressure going. Obviously, if I can find another fetch land and have like Shadow with double Stubborn Denial up, I feel pretty good. Then opponent decides to be a meanie and take my Shadow and kill off my Bowmaster. So we're back to needing a threat. Ledger Shredder, technically kind of a threat. Not a great threat here. Would much rather a Tarmogoyf or another Shadow. Maybe not another Shadow. Probably just a Tarmogoyf. All right. Well, they're only at 24 now, so we've got them like right where we want them. We're drawing Field of Ruin effects. We do have like the basic island and the basic swamp. So my thought here is if I can find a Shadow or a Goyf and get like a couple bricks mixed in with a couple not so great spells, we have a chance. But as soon as they rip Karn, it's kind of game over. Can't stop the Karn. Can't stop anything they get off the Karn. We'll just go to game 2. I think that was me pulling up the wrong game and then fixing it. Sorry. Sideboarding against Mono Black. Spreading Seas coming in to try to take out Coffers, Field of Ruin, stuff like that. Flusterstorms coming in. Poured out some Fatal Pushes. Poured in Veil of Summer. Not a whole lot of ins and outs here. They got the Dolphy to be able to cast it off of the Spreading Seas Swamp. I really just wanted the redraw off of that Spreading Seas. Like, I want to hit land drops. I want to hit things to do. So it feels kind of bad to, like, not hit anything relevant there. Or not hit a land. I just want a land, really. Dolphy. I don't think I've seen this deck like so hard in on Dolphy post board. But I also could just be misremembering. For the most part, we know the deck's just going to be removal spells, land destruction. We'll cast the Preordained because we're assuming they've got a Bowmaster at this point. Bowmaster is definitely one of those like backbone cards that kind of holds this entire archetype together. Look at another land so we can Goyf hold up Counterspell. Hopefully. Shieldred's a pretty good one that's going to go straight to the graveyard. And now we can finally resolve Preordain without being terrified. One ring's pretty good, but again, kind of like against the Tron opponent last turn, we want to wait for them to activate the ring and then us go for the Terra Sunder. I don't really want to do the Bowmaster because I can't ping them. Doesn't do me much good. Another copy of the One Ring. So we'll get the Bowmaster down this time because we just don't have anything better to do. Edict me. I'll just ditch the Tarmogoyf because it's not really doing a whole lot for me. I got the backup Goyf. Like, either I'm surviving or I'm getting damnationed. Looks like we survive enough to ping him down with Bowmaster on to game 3. I would say that the mono black matchup is all right. Let's briefly go back. I would say that the mono black matchup is one of the big reasons to go with like a blue black based shadow deck. Having all the counter spells is really nice. So this hand, I want to bring it up because I think it's important. This hand's not bad, but I hate the idea of having both of my basics in the opening hand, because that means every single one of my opponent's Field of Ruin effects just turns into a strip mine. And that does not sound very appealing to me. So I mulligan this hand, and it's almost exclusively because of the double basics in the opener. Like, the rest of the hand's not that strong anyway, if we're talking about just Thoughtseize on 1, Ledger Shredder on 2, Stubborn Denial. And this is also a reason that, like, I don't really like Ledger Shredder in these blue-black base lists, is I think it's just very, very reactive. Or the list is very reactive, and Ledger Shredder is like a deck that needs to be proactive. But having the double basics in hand means like anything I get off Polluted Delta is just getting strip mined. And when I'm sitting here with a green card in hand, not going to very reliably have green mana, a threat that's not getting very sizable, and like one piece of reasonable interaction, I think it's, for me, a pretty easy ship. And then the 6-card hand having Shredder, Stub, Shadow, Bowmaster, a lot better. Decided to throw back the Shredder to keep my lands available to get Shadow online on turn 3. Soft Stub this Night's Whisper. Probably pretty aggressive, but I kind of wanted to just go ahead and cash in on that. Opponent ends up just having double Field of Ruin, Cabal Coffers, and a 1 ring. So getting down the Shadow is pretty free there on turn 2. Can kind of deploy out my threats, and yeah, top deck Damnation. So good times. We got a 1 ring, but we've got it needled, so they're not doing anything off of it at least. Still got a Cabal Coffers in hand and Unknown, but that Damnation off the top, and that was like a blind Damnation. Any Edict would have been really good for us. A Fatal Push would have been really good, but ripping the Damnation itself obviously sets us back quite a bit. Counterspell the EE on 1 so they can't take out our Pithing Needle. I was trying to hold up that fetch land as long as I could so that they couldn't like Field of Ruin my Watery Grave, because that would just take me off a double blue since I can't go get an island here. Spreading Seas on the Coffers into a Shadow is nice. Decide not to play out the Shadow to try to see if I can spike a counterspell off the top next turn. Some sort of counter to protect it. Hitting the Veil. Kind of get rewarded. Double Fatal Push. A little less rewarded, but we still yeah, still do get a redraw off the Veil. So it's not the end of the world. The fourth copy of Death Shadow here. We had two that got Damnation, that one that got Fatal Push last turn, and now we have the fourth copy. Go for a really big March. So I ended up letting the March resolve. I could have Terra Sundered, but if my opponent like top decks another removal spell, then my Shadow's like a 3-turn clock right here. That feels great. And if they top deck another removal spell, then I'm kind of in an awkward spot. So I decided to just like hold up. Or no, I didn't have the Veil. I had Terra Sunder. I'm an idiot. I fetched a shock because I couldn't Veil because I got Terra Sunder. Waiting to kick on a Shieldred. That's what I'm doing. This game makes perfect sense now. If it was a Veil, I wouldn't have Veiled. I would have just fetched and shocked and saved the Shadow anyway. You get the idea. Magic's tough. On to round 4. Turn 1 Stirrings for Walking Ballista, so Hardened Scales. Hadn't seen a lot of Hardened Scales. It's supposed to be really popular, really good right now, and I just feel like I never run into it. Got a turn 2 Patchwork Automaton. Play out the Ledger Shredder, because if they want to outgrow the Shredder, they have to double spell, which gives me a Connive trigger. Unfortunately, did not play very well into my opponent playing a Soul Cauldron here. Then Soul Cauldron Ballista on 0 just to put the counters on the Automaton. Really, really good curve out for them there, that turn 3. I don't think there's anything I could have really done to prevent it, because if they wanted to play around Stub, they could have played out the land first and then Soul Cauldron. Obviously, they didn't, which could mean in hindsight, maybe I was able to stub the Soul Cauldron. But I don't think that's like a reason to make that play. Like the fact that they had the Soul Cauldron, the Ballista to go to the yard, like the 1 of Ozolith, maybe 2 of. Kind of just wrecked our world there. But post-board, we do get access to things like Dress Down. We get Stern Scolding, Engineered Explosives, Air Asunder, all really good cards. Jitterbuzz. Swinging in with the Buzzmeister. We're not playing Goyf on 2 because we're trying to Stern Scolding one of their more impactful 2-drops. Hangerback wasn't really the one I was looking for. I was more looking for Automaton, but we'll take getting rid of a Hangerback and then just Air Sundering a Saga. See what they got as a follow-up. It looks like their follow-up is no second land. So we're just going to double Goyf. They want to pop Soul Guide, nuke our yard. We get to keep our Goyfs as 2/3s, and then Preordain will grow them to 3/4s. Maybe find some more interaction. Go for it there, nuking our yard. But like I said, we get to follow up. We dismember, they dismember. Everybody's dismembering. I thought about this Engineered Explosives, but like the best card that they have is the Automaton, and I don't want to EE on 2 and take out my own Goyf, so I'll just like throw that back. They can always sack the Zabaz to itself if they find another color-producing land, and like put the counters on the Ink Moth or the Automaton or something. So I'd rather just find like another Stern Scolding, Dress Down, something. Really another Stern Scolding. Scolding is super, super nice in this matchup, because being able to hold it up on turn 2, their turn 2, your turn 1 for like Automaton and whatnot. Automaton, Ravager, Ballista, Hangerback, anything of the sort is really, really nice. Opponent's got a Cauldron down. We'll get down EE to blow up the Cauldron since we have Stern Scolding to counter a creature off the top. And if they just sit back on the Saga, we do have like plenty of spot removal for that. Could preordain here, but I'd need all of my mana available, and I really don't want to risk like not hitting a land. If I don't hit a land, then I'm just locked into popping EE, which means if they've got like a Ravager or something, I could take a huge chunk of damage that I don't need to take. I think we saw the Ravager off the top with Bauble. Then finding Dress Down is just like chef's kiss. And that's what I was talking about with the Preordain. If you don't find the land, it's not so free. Would really like this being a Ravager, Ballista, Hangerback or something. But I'll take killing the constructs and just leaving them with an automaton. Let's use away a Hangerback, get a Goyf down, kind of clog up the ground pretty well. We do need to find another land. I would like to get the Cursed Totem down and hold up interaction. Decide to regenerate the Walking Ballista. I figured they would just like sack off the Walking Ballista if I played the Totem, but they ended up not doing that. So this actually works out really, really well for me because, hey, I've got like bigger dudes than you. You're in top deck mode. I've got double counter spell essentially with a Preordain. Pithing Needle, can't name anything that I care about. Take one poison. Drown and Lock can kill off the Walking Ballista that can't activate. And now we're like forcing you into Abyss mode. So when they fire up this Ink Moth to block and we take that out, they have to give up the Automaton. We've got Drown and Lock to counter anything coming off the top. And that should be game. I think I like clicked on the Drown to counter it and my opponent scooped to that. And it was like, fair. Could have let it resolve and killed it on the battlefield. Cursed Totem really showing up there. Been really impressed with Cursed Totem when you actually see it. So this is round number 5. All the Storm Giants Expedition maps. So my assumption was mono blue Tron. And then I see like Shadow Spear, Maze Mind Tome. So now it's like, all right, something with Saga because of Shadow Spear. An Expedition map. I see no sign of Tron lands. I see Field of Ruin. So my only thought is this has something to do with either Aspiring Spike or M. Hayashi. I don't know which one put this abomination together, but one of those two has to do with this deck. I'm very, very confident. I don't know what Lagoon Beach or whatever does, but I know it bounces my Ledger Shredder and I get to double up Connive triggers if I counter it, so I'm going to counter it. I'm just going to make up a construct here. We're just going to keep attacking and hope to draw a non-land card. A lifelink trampling construct. A construct that's not allowed to be here no more. Non-land, technically. I do feel like if I could just get this other construct off the board, I'd be in pretty decent shape. But if they're able to like strap up the construct like this, then they're out racing me pretty well. Definitely the big downside to Ledger Shredder is it is just not a clock when you want a clock. I do think that splashing for something like Tarmogoyf in shadow decks that want a clock is very reasonable. Again, Again, because of the situations like this where you want to get a game over with and you just can't because you're hitting your opponent for like 1 or 2. Sideboarding. I wasn't really sure what to sideboard here. Some sort of like mono blue saga control-ish style deck. So I brought in Dress Down. I looked at engineered explosives. I probably should have brought it in. I could have kept in the Thought Seizes, but I kind of just wanted to be proactive and see what was going on. This starting 7, I think this was like the really sketch 7. Yeah, so this was like turn 2 Shredder Bauble, but I'm more than likely discarding a land, and that just means I'm sitting on a like 1/3 clock, which is absolutely abysmal. So I would rather throw this back and find a hand with like Thoughtseize into Shadow, Thoughtseize into Goyf, Stub and Goyf, something like that. So keeping a 6 with Dress Down, Drown, Counterspell, Preordain looked a lot better in my mind. Preordain, try to find a second land. Preordain letting me down. Okay. We're doing stuff. Just hold up Bowmaster. I'm kind of fearful of them having like a Stern Scolding here. So I kind of want to make them like use it on their turn and then untap with Shredder instead of using it on my turn and getting to untap with all their mana available. And we'll go for the Terra Sunder on their upkeep. So if they've got the counter, they got to spend the mana. They can't make a construct on their turn. Just hold up, Dress Down, and Drown in the Loch and not really know what's going on. Decide to Dress Down just for the redraw here. While I'm doing it on their second main phase. So if I find something to like Shredder plus spell to Connive, then I get that on my turn. What we're doing here. I'm kind of... So I brought in Spreading Seas because of Saga for the most part. But I'm kind of hoping that I can just find like something proactive that I'm not going to get combo killed off of them untapping with their 4th land. Literally no idea what they're doing. So I very well could die to a lot of stuff and just never see it coming. Dismembered the Subtlety. I should have dismembered off of the Breeding Pool because it's the land that's most likely to get Demolition Fielded if they decide to go for that. Whereas going off the Swamp means if they Demolition Field, I might not be able to hold up Drown in the Loch. So either way, opponent scoops to me conniving a whole bunch. Or once. And we go to game 3. So game 3 for the trophy. On the draw against mono blue something with something. Nope. Thoughtseize into something 6. Bobble ourselves, try to get a little more information for this Thoughtseize. I do in fact want Tarmogoyf. Subtlety, Dismember, Field of Ruin. So we know we can get down the Goyf on turn 2. They can spell bomb it, which would be pretty sad for us, but they decide to draw off the spell bomb instead, which I was not expecting. Enigma Jewel. Okay, so that was a mistake right there. I countered the Enigma Jewel, planning to like tear asunder the Urza Saga. I should have just let the Enigma Jewel go and tear asunder the Saga and hold up Stubborn Denial. Because without like the Saga, then the Enigma Jewel's not doing anything. End up finding an EE. I could have countered the EE, but they couldn't play the EE on 2. So now they've got Saga, they've got Subtlety. Pretty okay combination. But yeah, I should have just let them have the Enigma Jewel and Air Sundered and kept my Stubborn Denial. I just think that's like more impactful than anything else. So them top decking another Enigma Jewel right here. Like, if I had let them have the first one, then they would have had this anyway. And it wouldn't have ended up mattering, except now it would have been a dead card instead of a replacement for one I countered. Make constructs. Go tutor up. Brittle Effigy. Card that I have had the misfortune of running into it a non-zero number of times before. You pay for exile it and exile a creature. So might as well attack with the Goyf because they're going to exile it if I don't. Or they could have like taken it and exiled the Bowmaster, but you run into a lot of issues if I have like another Bowmaster. They play an EE on 0 here. I have to counterspell it because if I don't, both of their constructs grow to 4/4s and they kill me through blocks. So at least not casting it or not playing the EE gives me a chance to draw like a dress down and have Goyf, face Subtlety, I dress down. I don't know what I'm drawing into, but something. But either way, opponent runs away with it, mainly because of Saga. Not so much because of Jewel Lotus, or Jewel whatever it was, Enigma Jewel. I think that's the name of it. But either way, cool card to see. Like I said, I'm assuming Aspiring Spike or M. Hayashi is behind all of that. But regardless, Sultai did pretty well. There's definitely some changes that I would make. Again, these are like, anytime I make changes, it's based off of my experience with like an archetype or my play patterns. I don't think Ledger Shredder is very good in these decks, any of the like blue-black based shadow decks, because I think you're just so reactive with like Fatal Push, Counterspell, Drown in the Lock, Dismember, Stubborn Denial, that you're just not getting those connive triggers. Because you don't want to be discarding like your counter spells if you can help it. And the only other thing you got besides counter spells is removal spells and threats, and you don't really want to be discarding those. So Ledger Shredder just always seems very mopey to me. You're a little more proactive with Bobble. I just don't think that's like enough to get it over the edge. So if it were up to me, I would cut the Shredders. Preordain is fine. But I do feel like there's a lot of times that I don't want to cast Preordain on my main phase. So Consider is like the instant speed alternative. And I really, really value that instant speed, especially when you're playing Counterspell, Bowmaster, Drown. But again, that's like a me thing, not a global thing. So play the versions that you think work for you. I wish there were another option you could run for another threat. Like Tarmogoyf, I really like. I do think it gets very sizable very quickly. But I wouldn't mind seeing something over Counterspell, some other threat to get access to Gigantha, just because having a companion's nuts. And when you've got a sideboard that can completely utilize Gigantha, and the only things holding you back are Dismember and Counterspell, and Dismember's whatever, you could have like a ton of other removal spells that fit that slot, then I do think if the meta ends up being more fair, then Gigantha is probably better than Counterspell. I do think there's like replacements for Counterspell that you can play and be relatively happy. But the big one to me is just Ledger Shredder. I don't think the card is worthwhile. Spreading Seas and Stern Scolding continue to impress. I love Terra Sunder. I think the card's got a ton of flexibility. Veil of Summer's really good if we're still expecting a lot of these scam decks to be up top. I think I saw Scam like won one of the challenges this weekend. So still there, still all over the place. Curse Totem, great. I'd probably go up to the second Curse Totem, but I don't really know what I would cut. Dress Down's great. Dress Down with Tarmogoyf, obviously a little bit of an awkward combination, but I do think Dress Down hoses so many things that I would still play like at least 2 of them, regardless of Tarmogoyf. So yeah, hope this video maybe inspired you to check out some Sultai. Otherwise, we'll probably be back live a few times this week now that the holidays are wrapping up. So hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your week and weekend. Enjoy the New Year's. Happy holidays. Wishing you all the best. Enjoy some good food and company. I'll catch y'all back live later. Adios for now.